Hey folks, I'm William. This is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today we've got a very special guest with us today. It's Ross Mahler from Gelatinous and Grim Games. Hey Ross, how's it going?
Doing good.
Awesome, man.
Good to find
I'm really excited to have you on the channel. I think this is probably a long overdue conversation. I've actually been a big fan of your Final Torch Zines. I think these are fantastic products.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. For folks who may not already know who you are, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Ross Mahler. I've been really focusing lately. I've been DMing for quite a few years now. Uh, but lately, after discovering, I felt like I really found my niche with Shadowdark.
Cool.
And so I was like, I want to make my own content. We've been doing homebrew stuff for my home game forever, but to actually get out there and sell and kind of, honestly just share it with other people.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that was only possible with Shadowdark for me. That was sort of like wow, this is a revelation.
Yeah, I think it's a really fantastic system, and it's so light and easy to design for. It just makes it really easy to translate whatever creative thing you're doing into something that's actually usable by other people.
Yeah, and especially because I feel like you can build upon it.
Yeah.
Which in a couple instances I've tried to do in some of these zines to be like, hey, I wish it had this, and that's what's great about it is that you can easily hack it and do your own thing with it.
Yes, very hackable, very modular, and I think really easy to pick up and play in a way that some other games in the genre may not be as easy to pick up and play. Yeah.
Yep.
So I imagine the audience probably knows you primarily for your work on the Final Torch zines for Shadowdark. You want to tell folks a
Sure.
little bit about those?
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to do is actually very much inspired by what Kelsey did with the Cursed Scroll zines,
Yeah.
which is picking a certain locale and then building some adventures, a nice hex crawl, and some custom monsters specific to that locale. I actually have planned. I started, once I did one of them, I was like, you know what? I feel like I should really plan this out a little first. I saw something. I saw something. It was on Discord actually, where Kelsey was talking about sort of now having to kind of put the different zines together. And I was
Yeah.
like, I should learn from that and do that now. So I kind of
Good
drew
idea.
a whole world map and put things together. So I have, I think, 11 or 12 of these that I'm hoping to do. I mean, whether I run out of steam or not is a whole other story, but I try to do completely different regions so that I can kind of, really attack that type of environment and see what I can do with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm actually a really big fan of the curse scroll kind of format. Um,
Yeah.
I wish we'd see more of these in the generic Shadowdark community, but it's the stuff that's out there is pretty good.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. There's some great stuff.
Yeah. So mainly, I want to talk to you today about your issue number 2 of Final Torch, which is the Pirates of Barnacle Bay. For folks who
Yeah.
may not be familiar, maybe didn't catch the review of it earlier, can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, what I wanted to do this time was make something that's sort of a tool. I was going to say a hex scroll, but there's actually two hex scrolls in it, which I thought was kind of like a fun variation.
Yeah.
But it's really to build I mean, I say pirates, but it's really a nautical based campaign where you're out, you're sailing, you don't have to play pirates, but the Barnacle Bay is a town full of pirates.
Hmm.
So it's a bunch of scoundrels and gamblers, and it's almost like hey, we had this idea. My son and I actually work on, talking about this stuff a lot together. We play the game a lot together.
That's awesome.
And I did a thing years ago. It was Barnacle Bay, and the idea behind it was that it's a town where pirates went to retire. So that was sort of like the hook to it. The two hex scrolls in it though was just kind of like a fun idea to have. I put in it a Fey Ocean, and there's
Yeah.
a bunch of different ways to get back and forth to and from this sort of. It's almost like going into like in like Curse of Strahd, where you're in this other domain,
Yes.
for a little while, pocket domain, whatever you call it. But that idea of saying you can just, and it's sort of like you're unsure at first. How do I get there? So one of the first things I do is put together an adventure in which you can find this captain's log, and that's what the captain was logging was the ways back and forth.
Gotcha.
And so you find it on a shipwreck, and that's sort of a fun way to introduce that idea to your players.
Yeah, I actually really like the idea of the Fey Ocean. I don't know why I've never thought of it before, but just the idea of having like kind of a Fey encounter in this kind of campaign just struck me as both really innovative and just like really creative. So I really appreciate that.
No, thank you. And that to me is, I feel like that's my overarching goal with these things is to go. On the one hand, you kind of want to lean into tropes a little bit on like,
Yes.
here's some as a way to honestly even just using pirates as a way to that's something a lot of people are familiar with and excited by, but then to kind of turn that on its head a little bit and do something different
Yes.
with it. I really do try. I like to do that. I come from a background of writing as well. I've written a couple novels, and I'm always looking for ways to take a trope and spin it. So
Yeah, I actually
it's
really like that. I am a person who really loves and respects classic tropes. But I know that there's a pretty big size, like a sizable portion of the community that if you just give them the trope straight, they don't enjoy it as much. But if you can just put a little
yeah.
subtle variation on it, it makes that really old and exciting thing feel new again. So that's really awesome.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's funny. I just was I don't know if you're familiar. I do screenwriting as well,
Oh, cool.
scripts, and that has actually really helped me in writing really succinct stuff because you
Yes.
have to. You can't just be prosaic and go crazy, But I was going to say there's a guy, Robert McKee, who's got this famous quote he was talking about when you're writing your ending, like almost all of your ending of the story should be almost all of your effort in a story should be invested in the ending.
Hmm.
So because by the time people have reached the end of the thing that you've written, if you give them exactly what they're looking for, they say it's predictable. If you give them something out of the blue, they say it doesn't make any sense. And he said, like, and I've kind of taken this to heart. He says, like, the secret is to give them what they want. We give them what they're expecting, but not in the way they're expecting it. And it's such a great bit of advice to go, how do I come at it without, like you said, feeling trite? And this has been done a million times. So
I think that's really awesome advice. I can see how that's very applicable to the world of tabletop RPGs. So that's a good little
sure.
tidbit.
Yes.
I wonder if you just maybe give us like maybe 3 to 5 little bullet points about the Pirates of Barnacle Bay, like the things that you're most excited about the adventure or the setting, and just give people a
Yeah,
taste of what's in there.
sure, absolutely. I did want to put in some ship combat rules. I feel like that
Yep.
was important in this. I feel like there's a lot of those out there already. I feel like Pirate Borg has done an excellent job, and I feel like if people want slightly crunchier rules, there's lots of options.
Sure.
I was really looking to try to take a shot at coming up with like rules that literally fit on a page. Other than stats for the ships and weapons and the stuff like that, but
Yeah, the
just
basic
literally,
rules. Yeah.
can I do this? Which was a challenge, but that's what I was aiming to do, so that there's at least something out there that is, I kind of have that mantra, what would Kelsey do, right? How do you boil this down in a way that is, sometimes you're, what's the word for it? Where you're abstracting things like she did with carousing and things like that.
Yes.
So I think that I was a little bit that I think that was the hardest part because I actually put some crunchier rules up on Reddit, which I'll probably just
I saw
post for
that.
free up there. Yeah, and I started to be like these are interesting, but they didn't feel like Shadowdark.
Yeah.
So and then I started to think about, well, how do you turn? And anyway, so I came up with some rules that I think hopefully at least are an approach to that. I also there's not really anything that I saw in the rules for underwater combat other than you just get disadvantage, So I thought it would be
Yeah.
fun to kind of tie in. I made there's an NPC in it who's a guy who sells these breathing packs and these torches. They're called torch jelly sacks, which are these things. It's like a bag of
Yes.
glow in the dark jellyfish that you shake for one turn and they glow.
I think that's great. Very
Yeah,
thematic. Yeah. Right on brand for the
yeah,
setting.
exactly. And then some breathing thing, which is like the face hugger's an alien that jams a tube down your throat, but you're able to breathe. So those things are kind of go on the same torch timer. And that actually, I had them as separately timed things until I play tested it. I'm like, wait a minute, now you need to keep track of two
Just
timers.
keep it together. Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Exactly, keep it together. So if your torch goes out, the thing that's giving you air might freak out and leave, and you got to get to the surface. So it was kind of a fun idea.
I think.
And
Yeah. I think
then
that's great.
It's funny how it turned into a problem to solve after playtesting, but it ended up being kind of a fun solution, I think, to tie the two together. And then I have the town of Barnacle Bay, which is just like I said, a pirate town. There's a
Yep.
fun tavern in it. In the tavern, there's a giant worm that's this huge, probably the most lethal thing in the game that you're not even sure how big. It's almost like a mythical creature,
Uh-huh.
but that people drunkenly walk a plank over this pit and bet for it. So I have rules for that as a tavern game, which is kind of fun. And I also did I was alluding to it before, but there's a shipwreck adventure,
Yep.
which is a pile of shipwrecks in a very, rocky area. And that's where you can go down and, that's sort of the adventure in the book that you're sent on at first. If you choose to, not do
Sure.
West Markets, if your players choose to whatever, you can guide them toward that. But yeah, so you have to go down through the shipwreck, which is kind of like a fun way to do a maze that was kind of, again, just a different approach to it.
Hmm.
Instead of it being a maze, it was like, okay, you could go down this way, or you could down through this cave, or you could, a bunch of different ways to get down there. But depending on which path you choose, it's going to be what do you run into.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to think. And then one other thing that I did, which is kind of fun, I did this hunting adventure, which is an idea I came up with years ago, really born out of the idea that I was dying to run certain monsters in D&D
Uh-huh.
5e, and I just needed an excuse. So I said to my players, "Hey, you've been summoned by this, hunting club,"
Yeah.
and it kind of forced the players to be bolder than they normally would have been, and turning that into a competition was kind of a fun way that they're trying to outdo, another group that's going against them or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's really
So
cool. Just to go back a little bit, I really liked the town of Barnacle Bay. I thought it struck a really nice balance between like detail and flavor, but also keeping it pretty clear and concise. I think in that way, I
yeah,
think you did a really good job of mirroring how Kelsey handles the descriptions for some of her areas. I think she's also does a very good job with that. Um, and I also like the hunting club idea because, as you said, this is just a great excuse to give a little bit of structure to throw whatever kind of cool creature that you want into your game, and there's like an outlet for that. So I thought it was really cool.
what's fun about that is I think I put it in the book is that you can really take that idea and throw that you could do it for any level
Of
because you could
course,
just
yeah,
have your players try that for higher level monsters to get more points. I think I put a thing in there that it's like basically the monster's level is how many points you get, but if you catch it
yeah,
alive, it's worth double. So, but you can also do it in any environment. So, it's a nice thing to actually perhaps have as a recurring thing that comes around. It's like a traveling carnival almost. It's this thing
yeah.
that comes around once in a while, and it's in this town now, and you can sign up for it, and made some fun flyers and a score sheet for it and
Oh
that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Your zines have the best handouts I think of any of the Shadowdark products that I've run
Oh,
across. So I'm a big fan of those.
yeah, I'm a big, I've been doing graphic design. I've worked in a marketing, field for probably 30 years now. I think it is. It might even be longer.
Mhm.
Dating myself now, but
That's okay.
yeah, no, but it's great. I really do love, design. Like I did the logo, my Gelatinous Grim logo. I did the Final Torch masthead. I did, and as a lot of people have commented, my sister is this phenomenal watercolor artist.
Yes, the art
So
in these
once
zines
you,
is really good.
yeah, exactly. It's just really, really top-notch stuff, and I feel like it just helps. Like apart from being great artwork, I feel like it helps me convey what I'm trying to convey and the
Yes,
feeling that sometimes it's that whole idea of a picture's worth 1,000 words. It really
absolutely.
does sum up a feeling. And yeah, she's just been fantastic, and it's actually been a great way for us to work together on something.
That's
Which
very cool.
yeah, we really haven't done that before. We both have our different things that we do. Her husband's a great artist as well, and I come from a family that really values the arts. My wife does really she designs her own jewelry. My daughter does cake decorating. My son's a filmmaker. So it's there's just surrounded by it, so you kind of can't help have some of that rub off.
Very cool. So, for people who want to check out the Final Torch Zines themselves, there will be links down in the video description for folks to pick those up. I was wondering, does your sister do commissioned work as part of what her art stuff?
Yeah, somebody else had asked me about that, and I'm sure that she would, as long as you come after I do.
There are
No, but
priorities.
yeah, I'm sure she'd be interested in that. It's interesting. The process is like a dialogue between, as I explained her what I'm trying to do. I
Of
sent her
course.
some reference images. It's great.
Okay,
So
awesome.
really a lot of fun.
So, if people wanted to reach out to her, is there a way that we could like get an email address or a web form or something?
Sure.
Okay.
And you can put a link to it in the description, but it's
Yeah.
tracymahler.com. So that's Mahler, but tracymahler.com. Yeah,
Very
she's
cool.
great. You'll see lots of samples of her stuff up there. It's really fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it, but the art in these scenes is really good, and it's also it's a little bit different from the classic Shadowdark style. And I think
Yeah.
that among a certain population of Shadowdark players, that's very intriguing for them. I know there's like Cry on the Discord is constantly talking about the cult of Chromadark, and he loves seeing all the color stuff in the Shadowdark world. So very cool.
And to me it's really interesting because pretty much all the monsters in it are have gone black and white with those,
Yeah,
other than maybe a few sample images here and there for
sure,
something that you. So I kind of try to get the best of both worlds, where I'm trying to go, okay, here's something a little different, but you also have these, more those woodcut inked images as well. So it's great.
yeah. I think that's a really good combination. You get the color to bring people in, and then you got some black and white stuff. I'm sure that's also a little bit cheaper, and also it probably makes people feel a bit more comfortable with the old school kind of art. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I wanted to transition and talk a little bit more about the business side of things. I mean, I was
Sure.
wondering if, for context, you wouldn't mind sharing some of the sales numbers around the zines, and I'd also like you to break them down by your various different sales channels, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I sell in three different ways. One
Mhm.
is I for print I have Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, and then always have Drive Through RPG, which to me is always the top seller. It's the portal where the people go to.
Yeah,
And then I also have my own website, which people can go and directly. I mean, that's what's best for me as far as the amount of money that I make. But I understand it's not going to be you know it's not going to be the biggest seller because people don't know about it. However, I feel
sure.
like I might as well start with having my own website, and then as people discover me, I try to drive people there too to sign up for the newsletter, and then which it's funny. I actually had people sign up for the newsletter, and I was so invested in issue number 2 that I was like, oh my God, I never sent out any newsletters. So I'm going to try to
That
get better about
happens.
that. It's just a little bit here and there. I don't want to blow up people's inboxes either.
Sure.
Something you learn from marketing is not to do that. So trying to give people something of value. But yeah, I was so invested in it. I just totally forgot to do the newsletter.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Um,
that's fine. I think people would probably prefer just to get like completed stuff, but
yep.
it is what it is.
Yeah, I actually took a list last night on drive through. It was about 110 copies. This is actually, I should clarify, this is almost all of this is the two zines.
Yeah,
But from the first zine, I had a couple individual adventures, like the Sanctum of the Undertoad Queen, and
yeah.
that I sold separately. So there's a few of those in there as well. But this is, since July, it's been 110 copies of all of that, but mostly the two zines.
Yeah,
On my own website, there's about 47 copies,
that's
and
great.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like I'm trying to, build a following, so I'm trying to keep it cheap for now.
Yeah,
And honestly, I want to keep it cheap forever, right? It's like, hopefully you get enough following that just the volume that you sell makes it, worth your while.
sure.
And Amazon, I'm actually surprised. On Amazon, people actually paying for the printed thing, which unfortunately you have to charge the most for.
Yeah,
74 units on that, which is actually pretty good.
that's great. That's really exciting,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And I think numbers wise, all of that adds up to, I think literally today, I think just broke $1,000 in profit, So
Congratulations. That's
yeah,
that's a big deal. Hopefully, you're celebrating that milestone.
yeah, that's great. And interestingly enough, my theory was correct, which it's not too hard to, to surmise this stuff. But I was like, I feel like once I put out that volume 2 is around, people who missed volume 1, are going to go back. So I probably had
Yeah.
just as many people go back and get volume one as pick up volume two that just came out. So I kind of figured that would happen, but it's actually been more people going back and getting the first issue, which they're probably wired like I am. I'm like, well, I can't start with two. I got to start with
No,
one.
I'm the same way.
OCD that way. I got to do it.
Yeah, but that's been my experience as well. Whenever I put out something new, I get a larger influx of stuff from some of my older stuff as well. So
Yeah.
it is a compounding thing. So if you're starting out and you're not getting a lot in your first thing, just know that if you keep doing it, the effects are compounding. It's not just like scaling linearly. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah. I actually saw an interview. You probably have seen it as well. It was on the Arcane Library YouTube where Kelsey interviewed Sursa Victory.
Yeah,
And
yep.
and he's been a huge inspiration as well because I feel like I've watched that interview probably 6 or 7 times in full. I've talked to him a few times
It's a good
over
one.
email, and it's great. And he talked about that. I think that really helped me. He said, just put your work out there. Expect it's not going to be a success, and then just move on and do the next one. And I was like, okay, I got to do that. And my son actually had the idea of he said, you should really have this second one lined up before you release the first one. So that number one, you're kind of, it's a great marketing idea, right? To say,
Yes.
okay, here's what's coming next. But it also, I felt like it was now, I made a promise. So I can't just go, I'm going to rest on my laurels. I have to
Yeah.
now do it. So I feel like with each one, I'm going to try to go, here's what I'm doing next. And hopefully people will be excited by that. This
Right.
time around, I did not put the cover of the next one on because I felt like as my sister and I worked together, we discovered like, oh, maybe I should have used this one for the cover, but I already put it on the back of the first issue, so I kind of want to leave that open. But I am excited about doing an Arctic thing next, so that's kind of a fun way to go.
Yeah, me too. Do you know yet if it's going to be like a Norse thing or if it's just going to be more generically Arctic?
I actually am doing a bunch of research right now, looking into
Cool.
various legends, folklore from different Arctic regions. Whether it's Inuit, Eskimo, whatever the nomenclature is now,
Hmm.
or but even like Norway, and things that are very and just really kind of just diving into some of that at the very least for inspiration
Cool.
you know. And yeah, I've got a bunch of ideas already for that, which is fun. My son and I will sit down and we'll just have these hour-long powwows where we just talk about, what do you think? What would be a cool thing here? And then I'm always looking for films because I'm a huge film buff. So I'm always yeah. So I'm always looking for I'm like, oh, it'd be cool something like The Thing. Obviously it's such a great
Yeah.
but I have I think an interesting idea for that still being developed. But yeah, kind of like a fun idea surrounding that.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm interested to see it when it comes out. I'd love to take a look at it.
Yeah, and thematically, it'll probably be in the middle of winter that I'll release it because got the holidays coming up, and I definitely needed to take at least a week-long break
Sure.
after I did two of these in a row, and I literally was going nonstop. But I've already got like 4 pages of notes of things, so I'm already on it really, but not diligently like I was for. I mean, I probably spent and I'm sure Will, from doing these things, you spend you're making so much less than minimum wage working on these things, because it's if you do it and you do it right, it's a lot of investment of time.
Yeah.
I happen to love doing them, so I'm
Yeah.
not complaining at all. But just getting your stuff out there and the idea that other people are actually running it is so exciting.
It is. For me, that's the biggest thing. When I actually see people, they have the book in hand, they're like, "I'm running it this weekend," or "I ran it yesterday and they had a great time." That is really like the best part of the business for me personally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very rewarding, very
yeah,
rewarding.
for sure. I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about your decision to sell on Amazon. I know
Yeah.
that Drive Through RPG also does print on demand stuff. I was wondering what it was about Amazon that made you go that route, as opposed to doing print on demand on Drive Through.
Honestly, it all came down to price. Once I started to look
Mm,
at because it's not just black and white interiors that I'm doing, because I have a
yeah,
lot of color art spread throughout, and even
right.
even in the main text, I'll use color to differentiate to make the monsters that I mention pop or something like
Yeah,
that, or just a colored bullet or an underline just to kind of help draw your eye to, oh, this is a DC 12 check. I put those in a different color. really to just from my own experience of I hate having to pour through a block of text to find what I need.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts. And that's honestly, that's probably the biggest inspiration for doing these is I want to write something that I wish somebody else had written to make this easy to run. That's usually my goal. But yeah, that was the biggest factor. If I can find something that's more reasonable, and print on demand is key because
Yeah.
I'm not in a position to be like, let me lay out a couple $1,000 and
Sure.
buy, print something in bulk and hope to sell it. Maybe I'll get to that point. I hope I get to that point. But for right now, it's like it's really the only feasible option. But if anybody has any other alternatives, please send them in the comments. I'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you looked at Kickstarter at all? Some crowdfunding stuff, get an offset print run done?
It's definitely something I've looked into, and I think that's part of the goal of building an audience because I feel like without an
Yeah.
audience, I'm going to go on Kickstarter
Fair.
and go. Hopefully, people come find me. How are they going to find me?
Yeah.
So if part of the goal is to go. Okay, maybe we can because I feel like if that's done correctly, I can kind of bring the cost down for everyone. That's
absolutely.
the ultimate goal. So I'd love to get stuff out there for cheaper for sure.
Very good. Let's see here. So I think at this point, I don't know if you're willing to say it or not, but I will say it sounds like the Final Torch scenes have been very successful, and I'm curious to know what are maybe like the 1 to 3 things that you think have contributed most to your success in publishing the zines.
I think probably honestly, it all comes down to Kelsey because I was so inspired by her incredibly terse writing.
She's a great writer.
She's fantastic, and to be able to do to write things that are both brief and evocative, I feel like is so rare. But as a writer, I saw that as a challenge because, like I said, I come from a screenplay background, so you have to
Yeah.
write very condensed versions. I've also written novels where you can be more flowery and you can expand and go inside people's heads. But in something like this, it was a real challenge to say, I want to be able to write very briefly, very evocatively. I went a little bit longer in my hex descriptions in this issue versus the first one
Yeah.
because I felt like I wanted to have a little bit more to chew on, but I really wanted each of these things to be like, if your group goes there, you have something, you could just read 2 paragraphs maybe and go, okay, I know what to do with this. I look up a couple
Yeah.
monsters and know what you can do with it. And yeah, I feel like that was, a big thing there was being inspired by Kelsey's writing, the brevity of it, the getting to the point it's huge. It's what I wish I had. And in fact, it's interesting. I actually discovered Kelsey's writing before Shadowdark existed. I discovered her when she had her 5e adventures. And I
Same.
signed up for her newsletter.
Yeah.
I think I had all of the stuff that she wrote, and she would do these, back in her infancy on YouTube.
Yeah.
She'd have her videos, and I was like, oh my god, what a great idea to have everything you need for this room is on this one page. Just that idea of having it be where everything you needed.
It seems so simple, but it seems like it almost you never get it, and it's crazy to me that it hasn't caught on more.
Yeah, and I think you had commented on it on your review of the first zine. I don't remember. I feel like I've seen this in a few different places, but I don't know who, so I don't know who to credit it to.
Sure.
But that
I'll take
idea,
credit.
yeah, exactly, you take credit. But that idea of having before each adventure to have here's what the players know and here's what the DM knows.
Yeah.
To me, it drives me crazy to read, other adventures that I'm like, I feel like I have to read. Number one, I feel like I got to read 300 pages to run something. I don't have the time to do the homework.
No.
Your players don't care about 200 something of the pages that you
No.
just read. They don't care.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm not big into the lore dump.
Same.
I just don't really care for it. I just want to get into the adventure. So I do feel like, the other thing that she did that was great was the again, brief but evocative hex crawls. They're not fully fleshed out, and that's not for everybody. Some people like a lot more detail.
Sure.
But I like that there was enough there that I felt as a GM that I could say, all right, I could run with this. Yeah, and that's taken a little work for me. I've more traditionally have been a person who needed to prepare everything. And
Yeah,
again,
same.
I'll give my son credit on this one. He's very good at improv. So he was like, you should probably prepare less and kind of just throw yourself into the chaos a little bit. And it took me so long to do. And once I did it, I was like, wow, this is really the way to run the game,
Mm,
because otherwise you have things in your head that you think are going to happen.
yeah,
And that was a dramatic shift for me, coming from, 3-act structure of screenwriting, where he
yeah,
was saying, here's the middle, here's, beginning, the middle, the end, here's how it all wraps up, here's the pivot, the turn in the middle. You have no idea where it's going to go when you're, especially the minute you give it to players, right? They're going to go,
yeah,
we're going over, and you're like, I had no idea you were going to do that. You don't know how the dice are going to roll, you don't know where the players are going to want to go.
yeah.
So really embracing that chaos, I think, was, part of this as well, to say it's fine to go write just something brief and evocative for each of the hexes. And I tried to give a lot of them, and I hope that they're, I shouldn't, generic is probably the wrong word, but I hope that they're flexible enough that if you were running a different, jungle campaign or a pirate campaign, you could go, oh, I really like these things from Final Torch, I'm going to
Sure.
port them over there. That's what I hope. You want the stuff that people can use anywhere. So I want it to be modular in that way.
Yeah, I
So,
think I think those are some good takeaways from the stuff that you've done. Very cool. All right, so I want to shift a little bit now into the more of the hobby side of things. Just get a bit of a feel for your background in the hobby. I was
yeah.
wondering, like, when you got into TTRPGs.
For me, it was AD&D back in, it's probably like 1980, somewhere around there,
Yeah,
81, somewhere around there. And I fell for it hard. That's for sure. I was,
yeah,
and it's funny because from the very beginning, I was always looking to homebrew stuff. It was like graph paper, and I'm writing my own stuff. Uh, Writing, or running pre-built modules. I tried a few,
mhm,
but I felt like, and again, I have run a few, but I felt like so many of them were just a lot of empty rooms, and you're like, this is kind of boring.
yeah,
I wanted something more exciting, so I felt like I had to write my own stuff. And I'm sure that, the stuff that I wrote back then was so. When I look back on it now, I'm like, wow, that was really railroady, and just, But you got to start somewhere. You start and you invent your own things, and you do what you can with it, and hopefully get a little better each time.
and I bet your players still had a great time, even though they were a little bit railroaded.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. They still,
yeah,
they
yeah,
still had a good. They're all there. You're hanging out with friends.
yeah,
But I did that through I probably played honestly for about a good 4 or 5 years, and then college and jobs, and
yeah. Life.
moving away and coming back, and honestly didn't pick it up again until I want to say right before COVID. So it was a
Same,
really
same.
several, I was going to say centuries, wow, several decades, several decades passed. And then my son was probably about, I think, I'm going to say like 17 or so at the time,
Yeah,
and maybe a little older now to think
that's
about it.
cool.
But he was like, oh, I'm looking into this, and we started, and I realized how drastically the game had changed since
Yeah,
I had last played
yeah,
it,
that's an understatement. Yeah,
right? And I missed 3.5. I missed, fourth edition.
sure.
So, and in lots of ways, I was like, wow, this is, the modern mechanics, disadvantage, advantage, the
Yeah,
FACO, it's all of that was,
I don't miss that go.
I don't, exactly. I don't miss that, but there were things that I did miss, like morale checks. That was one of the things I
That's
saw
funny.
that Kelsey had, and I was like, "That's great!" Like,
She
because otherwise,
knows. Yeah,
yeah, she knows. She's been there, and those are the things that I loved seeing added back to the game. My players love, hate the torch timer. We
yeah,
we had a thing. I think it was a couple weeks ago where it was probably one of the most dramatic, you know, points in the adventure, and then all the lights went out. And it was like
that's awesome. Yeah,
that's exactly what you want.
yeah,
And yeah, and I remember Saoirse saying in that interview with Kelsey, he was like, I do those D6 rolls for random encounters, and I go, all right, guys, just don't roll a one, and they're dreading it, in the
yeah,
best way. It
yeah,
adds such tension to the game in a wonderful way.
I agree.
So yeah, so that was my intro to it, and then like I said a few years ago, I got back into it. Ran 5e honestly pretty much from 2019 till now. It's been pretty much a weekly game.
That's awesome.
And for a while there, we were really in the thick of it. It was like we were playing 2-3 times a week. We were just really hooked, you know.
That's cool.
And I've kind of gone through the phases. I watch Black Magic Craft, who does this great channel for building your own terrain. I have just tons of, like, I created sewers, and I created, you know, dungeon tiles, and I created overgrown jungles and all these kinds of things. Lately, I've been getting back into just doing like theater of the mind, just because it became almost, and I still enjoy playing with minis. We even have an old TV that we converted into like a, you know, a thing we could put a projector map on the table, which is great, you know. But it became a kind of thing where just the setup for the game was taking an hour, because I got to get up and terrain, and it almost slowed it down, and which kind of went against what I was trying to do with Shadowdark too. You're trying to keep the action economy moving along. So the more that I can do things, theater of the mind, and plus it was a chance for me to exercise that muscle to go, okay, I need to describe without seeing. So.
And you almost need to do that if you're going to give your players like a true sandbox experience, unless you're doing a ton of prep before the campaign even starts. I think if you want to do, like, if you want to give them the maximum amount of freedom, I think you have to go theater of the mind. I've never been a huge fan. I really love minis and the tactical side of things, but I understand the appeal, especially for a low prep GM.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I love, honestly, I love being able to sort of try a bunch of things out. You know, we've done a few games online, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
Through Discord, through Roll20. And honestly, we even had at one point where we were playing, some of us were in person, and then we had like a laptop.
Yeah.
The camera of the laptop pointed at the minis so that they could see what was going on. People were playing remotely. We played around with a bunch of different ways of doing it. And ultimately, I'm kind of comfortable with all of them. It's just really a matter of how much time you have to set up. But I do believe you're right that I feel like the most immersive is to just let it be theater of the mind. And especially with the abstract distances, it makes it so much easier to just be like, yeah, you can get within close in a turn. You'll be there next turn. Instead of, well, is that 25 feet? Is it 35 feet? You know, that can really slow things down to a glacial pace at that point. It's really tricky.
Yeah, I actually think Shadowdark does a really good job of, you can do both the abstract, and then you can very easily just turn those into hard numbers if you want to. I know that's not recommended, but that's what I do, because I like to know how many feet there are. But I think it does a really good job of straddling that line and making itself applicable to both methods.
And I feel like having those rough numbers, I think, you know, Kelsey says in the Shadowdark core rules, like roughly 30 feet.
Yeah.
But even in my ship rules, I had to come up with, well, what are the distances in that? Because so I ended up doing close as you can easily jump onto the other ship.
Yep.
Near as you could swim to it, far as you can easily see it, and then I had to throw in distant, which is you can barely see it.
Right.
It's a ship on the horizon. So if you're going to be shooting cannons, you need something like that to be able to engage with that a little bit. So it was fun.
Yeah, I actually really like that breakdown. I think it maps on very cleanly to the existing distances. It's intuitive and makes sense. I think it's a good system.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
All right.
I was going to say, sometimes it's very hard to take by. I know I said it before. I think I had 4 pages of the robust rules for ships. This does not feel like Shadowdark.
No, I understand. Yeah, so I think I said something like, I really would love to see rules for like ship turning, but I think ultimately you made the right decision and keeping it more in the spirit of Shadowdark. What I was trying to play was like that was a different game. I don't know if Pirate Borg has that or not, but this is a different thing from what Shadowdark offers. So I think you made the right decision.
And I feel like those rules are already out there for people who want that tactical game and exact distances. You can easily use Pirate Borg rules in your Shadowdark game. This is just a way to go, I want it really, really simple. One page of rules.
I think that's great. And it's also specifically for Shadowdark, so you don't have to do any conversions. So I think there's value in that, even though there's like more robust rules that exist for other systems.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. right, so I think we already touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to know if there's anything else you wanted to say about what attracted you to Shadowdark to run and create for.
Yeah, like I said, it does come down to, really, Kelsey was such an inspiration,
Yeah,
and she's really also she's such a pillar of the community now. I think like
yeah,
the Shadow Dark community, I think, is the way it is because of her.
I agree,
Because
100%.
she just leads by example of, just be kind, be giving, all of those things. And it just really, it's such a welcoming community,
Yep,
that it really made me feel very comfortable developing for that it wasn't going to be, there's not going to be this gatekeepery kind of, approach to, oh, I can't believe you're doing that, and I've had that experience before. It's not fun. Who wants to do
yeah,
that? Who wants to go through that? And I've had such really great positive response from these,
that's cool.
you know. And I, I say this all the time when I was writing screenplays. I'm like, but what I really want also is if there's stuff I can be doing better, I want to know about it because I want to keep improving. That's honestly the only way that you get better is that people point out. Like there were things that you pointed out in your first review, and I was like, oh, that's a good point. I can do that, right? And a couple other reviewers as well. I was like, oh, good point. I literally have a checklist to things to remember. Oh, do this next time. Don't do this. Little things, and ultimately, you hope you end up with a great checklist and lots of things to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate how responsive that you are to feedback. I mean, sometimes you're obviously not going to take everything that people send you because that would be silly. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that I think even the improvement between one was already great. Final Torch one was awesome. I thought that Final Torch two was like another step above what we
Oh,
saw in the original one. So yeah,
yeah. I actually had somebody just reach out to me today. In fact, I forgot to mention it when I was doing my overview. I had the last thing that I put in the book. I was kind of debating how to. I had a bunch of ideas for basically a bunch of ideas that I didn't know what to do with other treasures and things like that. So I decided to turn that into a roll table that you can roll for. Hey, here's some upper level treasures, some really great lost treasures, and
yeah,
there's 8 of them. And then there's 8 locations they could be, and there's 8 different NPCs who could know about them, and there's 8 different treasure maps. So like it ends up, I think, making it very replayable. So if it's an environment that if it's a region that you like and you want to play it again, you just roll up something complete or pick something completely different next time and have that to be the grand treasure that the whole campaign is leading towards. And it was just a fun way to kind of not have to kill all those darlings and
yeah.
say, wait, I could actually just keep those around, but they don't have to be fleshed out the way you normally would for a full adventure. So I really kind of thought about them more in the abstract. Here's some random bit of lore. Here's where it could be, and I tried to really think about, maybe this cave is. I think half the caves are above ground, half of them are underwater,
Hmm.
and kind of, what can you do with that? And so some of that, of course, is in the GM's hands, but I think it is a fun way, and it reminds me of like in Curse of Strahd, right? If you rerun Curse of Strahd, you go,
Yeah.
the locations of things are different each time depending on how your tarot reading goes, or so it was kind of like a play off of that idea of randomizing each time.
That's very
So
cool. I'm a big fan of Cursed Straw. It's probably my favorite fifth edition adventure module, path, whatever. And I think you're right. I think a piece of that is the replayability. I think it's really cool.
yeah.
All right. So I want to know. I said you'd like to do a lot of homebrew. Do you run any other adventures, like published adventures from other creators? And if so, do you have any recommendations for people to go check out?
Yeah, I think the couple that come to mind, I feel like the main things that I have run are, and I already mentioned their names, but Kelsey's stuff and Circe
Yeah,
Victory's stuff. They're just great material,
they're
and
really good.
I feel like their stuff is so fleshed out. The first one that we ran as a group, I decided I really wanted to communicate to my players how deadly Shadowdark can be. So I'm like, you got to
Yeah,
start with a gauntlet. You start with a gauntlet, you're going to die, and I feel like knowing that you're going to lose characters helps so much, especially transitioning from 5e, where you're used to a lot of the players are invested in their
yeah.
backstory, and anyway, we started with Horde of the Sea Wolf King, which is in
Okay.
the Per Scroll 3.
Yep.
You also ran Plague Jewels of Sekhmet, which was the Source of Victory one. That was
Yep.
great. We did Tomb of the Dust Queen, which is another
Yep.
or so on, and just did. I think in my jungle campaign, I ended up dropping in Wavestone Monolith, which is one of Kelsey's one-page
Yep.
dungeons. So
These are
that
all
was
great.
great. And I have to tell you, that was one of those strange experiences where the dice just fell in a way that was so unbelievable that I just rolled. I was just like, oh, you see a bat flying, there's a cave, and I hadn't really read the adventure. I kind of was challenging myself to go, let me just pick this up. It's one page.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do
Yeah.
with
How
it.
bad could it be? Yeah.
I had no idea when I had my group go down. Like I had bats. Oh, there's a sting bat and it attacks you, and they're coming out of this cave. They go down this cave. I had no idea that the whole adventure was revolving around these giant bats, and I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. It
Yeah.
just happened by chance, but I feel like that kind of thing happens all the time. You're like, I cannot believe how well that lined up, and
Yeah.
you couldn't have written it better. So wild.
Yeah, I don't know how this happens. It has to be something with the way that Shadowdark is designed, but I feel like for whatever reason, stuff like that happens a lot if you just kind of follow the guidance that's presented in the core rulebooks. I don't know how it happens. I don't think it's explicitly written down anywhere that this is going to happen, but it feels like there is some sort of magic at work, or just probably realistically just really good design. But yeah, very very cool.
That's exactly it. And I feel like the one thing, not one thing, one of the things Kelsey is fantastic at also is kind of keeping things in the same tone.
Yep.
So you don't feel like you're over here and then you're going crazy whimsical or you're crazy changing genres. My stuff a lot of times comes from a horror standpoint. I'm a big horror movie fan,
Yep.
among other things. I'm actually just a classic movie fan, but yeah, I usually come at it from that angle. Just what would horrify me? And that's usually a good question to ask yourself if you're trying to frighten other players.
Absolutely. Cool. I wanted to know if there were any other tabletop games that you were playing right now or wanted to play, like in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big Dune fan. In fact, I even have a poster on my wall over here from it. So
I see
I
it.
think I've read all the books multiple times, listened to the audiobooks recently again. And so I do want to play the Dune role-playing game by Modifius, I think it is.
Probably. That sounds right.
I bought it a couple of years back, and it's just one of those, like I just haven't gotten around to running it yet.
Yeah.
Last year, my son got Mothership for Christmas.
For good things.
We haven't, yeah, exactly. We haven't played it yet. And actually, just today, I just got the final PDF for the Alien Evolved Kickstarter that I, supported. So I just got the PDF for that. So it sounds like everything I want to do is all sci-fi, but it's like Dune, Mothership, and Alien. So yeah, it sounds like that's the direction I want to go next.
Yeah, it sounds like your fantasy stuff is covered, and you want to branch out and do a different genre.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very
I mean,
cool.
and I'm really honestly open to trying a bunch of different games. I'm very interested in what. Do you watch the Tales from Elsewhere YouTube channel?
I do. Yeah, I like that channel quite a bit. He actually just had a Kickstarter wrap up, I think. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think he's honestly really piqued my interest with his approach to just building an RPG from scratch, which is
Yes.
the topics that he covers are really really informative. So
they're great videos.
I'm eager to try that as well when it finally releases. That'd be great.
Very cool. Yeah, and if I remember, I'll put a link to his channel down in the video description. Really great channel. Talks about a lot of like RPG like mechanics and gameplay and stuff in a way that I find very insightful, but also very entertaining. Like it's not a dry watch by any stretch of the imagination. So he does a good job with that.
And even just simple things like, and there a lot of times there are things that are obvious after you've heard them. You're like,
yes,
yeah,
correct.
Hit points don't really make sense. Why are you just as powerful at one hit point and as full hit points? So he kind of has different approaches to that, and
Sure.
And really kind of opens it up for other people to comment, and he has sometimes different competitions of people to submit stuff. So it's great. It's really great channel and very inspiring as well.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, so I think we're kind of coming to the end here. I didn't know if there was anything else that you wanted to talk about or cover before we close things down.
No, I mean, I feel like I covered just about everything I want to cover. I mean, if anyone's interested, I'd pick up the zine. It's hopefully creative. I mean, that's what I really do aim for, is to try to be creative with these. I feel like the biggest compliment I've gotten is on how usable the hex scrolls are, which is great.
Yep.
So even if you're not playing the adventures, the hex scrolls are a lot to sink your teeth into. Uh, yeah, and I'll just also thank my sister again for this incredible artwork that she's added to really make this thing come to life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So as we close things out here, where would you like people to come and find you if they're interested in seeing more of your stuff?
Yeah, I think gelatinousgrim.com, that's my website. And I'm always on Reddit as well. And I've been frequenting your Discord as well, I
Well,
believe.
thank you.
So yeah, I'm over on the Arcane Library Discord as well. So it's those are the various places, and I know you'll put a link to my sister's website out there too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, Ross. I really appreciate you coming on. I hopefully we'll probably do this again in the future, maybe when issue number 3 comes out.
Yeah, I hope so. It sounds great.
All right, cool.
Lots of fun. Thanks, William.
Thanks, Ross. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.